class, this is Dr. Halstead. I enjoyed reading your ethics papers on the ethical violations. I am still reading some of them. We have this new service called Turnitin that compares your paper to outside sources to see whether there was plagiarism in regards to if you just cut and pasted or if it was actually your words used in the paper. So some of those I'm still working through in regards to the Turnitin, and you'll be able to, once we get all that settled, you'll be able to see what it's saying about what percentage is copied from other sources. So that's a bit of the hold up on that. Just a couple things about that. I didn't take off much for this, but will in future papers. But every paper, you need to have at least one reference per page. So if it's a 5-page paper, you need to have 5 references. So that means 5 books, 5 articles, books and articles, whatever, that you've used to write the paper. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. So you can certainly use the texts used in the course, but you're welcome to bring in outside sources as well. But moving forward, I will be taking more off when you don't use at least that much. And then also, one common mistake is people don't include an introduction and conclusion to their paper. Or you might include an introduction, but then do not write a concluding paragraph or paragraphs. So be sure to include that also. But really well done, especially on the decision-making processes. You're able to move your cases through those step by step, and that was just really well done. And you'll continue to need that ethical decision-making process as we go in the class, so just keep that in mind, and you will come back to it. The assignment this week, the informed consent and confidentiality form. This is a form, as you do it, think in terms of what you will actually use in practice, and put yourself in the place of a client reading it, and is it answering all those questions that are asked in the assignment. So don't feel like you have to give a lot of information, just enough. So if a person was asking that question, they would get an answer. So try as much as you can to keep it concise. You can go a little over in regards to page number, but again, think of yourself as a client, and you don't want to have to go through 10 pages of consent form as you're getting ready to see someone. So, but think about it. This is something that you actually will be able to use in practice later on, especially as you set up a private practice. So keep that in mind as you do it. I wanted to share quickly just a couple situations. We've been talking about ethical violations, and so wanted to share these from my past. I was turned in, actually, when I was a new faculty. I was what's called a ABD, which means all but dissertation. So didn't have my PhD yet, but was considered a PhD candidate. Well, I was doing a research study with some students, and they wrote that as my title on the paper, PhD candidate, as they sent out these letters to different ministers in town. We were working with churches and counseling centers. And someone turned me in for false advertising, that I was misleading the public, making them think I was a PhD when I wasn't, because not everybody would understand what PhD candidate was. So I didn't even know the students had written that as my title on there, but I got a call from the investigator, and he was a bit chagrined because he felt it wasn't worth investigating, but they have to follow up every complaint. So I wasn't, there weren't any repercussions for me doing that, but it did certainly scare me for a minute there, that I had no idea that I was in trouble for something. And then I supervised a man. He was both a psychologist and an MFT, and he was leading a sex offenders group with a probation officer. And one of the men in group said he had been turned in for sexual abuse of his 14-year-old stepdaughter. Well, in the group one day, he said, I also fondled my 4-year-old stepdaughter. And so after the group, my supervisee and this probation officer got together and talked, and the probation officer said, I'll turn it in. And so, he was going to call and report it. Well, then a couple of weeks later, this probation officer quit the group and moved, and about that same time, all the participants in the group were required to take a lie detector test, and it came out again that this man had sexually abused his 4-year-old stepdaughter also. And so the technician reported it, and it hadn't been reported before. And so then they came back to my supervisee, and this is how he became my supervisee. And they said, why didn't you report it? And he said, well, the probation officer did. And they said, no, he didn't. And you are liable for that. So his license as a MFT and as a psychologist were suspended for a year, and he had to take an ethics class. He ended up taking my class, and he had to go to supervision for ethics for a year and had to pay my full rate. They wouldn't even let me give him a discount, and it was a pretty serious thing. He would have lost his livelihood if he had lost both licenses. So on something that he was absolutely innocent, but he should have followed through and certainly learned a lesson there that you don't let things that important be in the care of somebody else. You take care of it yourself. So anyway, just wanted to share with you a couple live situations that were turned in. And it's not meant to make us afraid to do anything, but it is meant to help us be aware that we have to be vigilant about keeping our clients' best interests first. And some of the cases you guys were addressing in your papers were just absurd. You wonder, how did this person get this far? And it's really because people start to think they're above the law and that they can do what they think is best. And so it's a mess. But really, it's for the good of both you and your profession to have a regulatory board, because it keeps people honest and it keeps people taking care of their clients. So look forward to reading what you find on Duty to Warn this week and the other posts, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.